Tiffany, jump in anytime. Congressman Tiffany, who is, are you up in Superior? Are you near the Brandon? Are you able to bask in the afterglow of this magnificent State of the Union?
Yeah, actually up in Superior today, and doing lots of media up here and sharing the story, much like you just are, that there's an alternative to that speech. And I don't think that speech really did much. I mean, when you look at the last half of the speech, it was basically just a rehash of what he calls Build Back Better. They still have this dream that they're going to be able to pass Build Back Better, and of course that's not going to happen. But they got to continue to rehash that for the base.
Because you're up in Superior and you represent a part of Wisconsin a lot of people maybe don't necessarily get to. What does having electric vehicle charging stations do for northern Wisconsin? What does it do? Is everybody up there saying, yay, I can't wait to buy a Tesla?
You don't see many Teslas up here. You see a lot of F-150s. But seriously, for people that know Superior, they know that the Twin Ports up here, it is one of the most important transportation hubs, not just in the Midwest, but in North America. You have rail that comes through here, all the Class 1 or a number of the Class 1 railroads. You have interstate, you have air, you have the port on Lake Superior, you have pipelines. It all comes together up here. And here's President Biden last night saying that I'm going to go up and talk about bringing these good-paying jobs to America. And I'm sure he's going to talk about that today here in Superior. Well, he did plenty to kill those jobs starting on January 20th of 2021 last year, when his very first action was to shut down the Keystone Pipeline. And that was just emblematic. It wasn't just Keystone Pipeline. He and his followers are trying to shut down pipelines, trying to shut down drilling on federal lands, sicking FERC, the Regulatory Commission, to stop any they're slow rolling all pipeline projects at this point. I mean, they've made it very clear they're going to do anything they can to shut down that industry. And think about all the good paying jobs. And by the way, there are two of the biggest pipeline manufacturers in the United States are right in Wisconsin. Joe Biden put those guys out of work.
Yeah, right. And I mean, how is it going to play the guy who's got to drive the F-150 and doesn't have the spare 80 grand laying around or 90 grand laying around for the electric model? How's it going to be for that guy? He gets probably somewhere around 17, 18 miles to the gallon when gas is $4.50. And those are the kinds of vehicles necessary to actually do work in places that aren't Madison or that aren't, Green Bay. It was so tone deaf that you almost couldn't believe it. Blaming inflation on small businesses, blaming all of this stuff on everything except his policy. His inflation has been driven by the massive amount of money, quote, free money that, of course, is never free because we're all paying for it in inflation, that was poured into the U.S. And he took a victory lap on that as well. The American Rescue Plan worked. No, it didn't. It's causing these exploding prices. And we're only talking about the Consumer Price Index. I mean, when you add everything, raw steel, raw aluminum, all of the raw materials, you're talking about inflation that can take what is estimated to be maybe $3,000 or more a year per family out of their pockets, which would, of course, erase all of the good the Trump's tax cuts did.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Some people are paying twice as much to heat their home this winter. They're paying over $1 a gallon more for their gasoline. But I always talk about this with three issues: job security, economic security, and national security. And you hit the first two very well in terms of jobs, economic security. Inflation is eating up people's paychecks. But this really has a national security component also, because we've seen crude oil go from $50 a barrel to $100 a barrel. Who did that strengthen? It strengthened Vladimir Putin and some other tyrants around the world who actually have oil to export. How did Vladimir Putin put together the money to do what he's doing in the Ukraine right now? Partly due to the additional money he's making at $100 a barrel versus $50 a barrel. This really has national security implications also. And then when you tie into what happened in Afghanistan, the debacle of pulling out of there, it is very clear to tyrants around the world, and this is the most dangerous thing about the policies that he's implemented over the last year plus, is that it has made the world a much less safe place. And we're seeing that play out in real time in the Ukraine, and that's partly funded as a result. That war is currently, in part, funded by the Russian government as a result of actions taken by our president a little over a year ago.
Indeed. And now, sending signals saying, and we're going to make it worse. We're going to make it worse because we have a net zero goal. We will make it worse. At the same time, blaming the fact that we have $100, a barrel of oil or exploding natural gas prices on the companies themselves. He's on bended knee begging OPEC to release more supply and talking about a pittance, what amounts to a pittance for the amount of energy we use in the United States out of the strategic petroleum reserves. I mean, it was so tone deaf. It was clear that he assumed that the audience was stupid. That's what it was. What seemed to me is that he knew you weren't paying attention and thought he was going to be able to pull the wool over your eyes. And it began, I mean, in earnest, I think, in the table pounding about Ukraine, which of course was just a way to try to get Republicans to clap for him out of the gate as well. Not taking responsibility for not imposing sanctions that might have reined in Russia. And he's talking about strong sanctions against Russia. Please define them.
So he said early on, we have to use all the tools at our disposal. He took the biggest one out of the box, January 20th, 2021, energy independence in America, having crude oil at $50 a barrel or less. That was the biggest tool, the biggest hammer that we had in the box, and he took it out a little over a year ago, and that was the very first signal to Vladimir Putin that he was going to get his way, as well as other despots around the world. And remember, when people talk about going to this whole green energy, what I call the green fantasy, you're getting wind turbines and solar panels from China, made in China. Joe Biden says, I want to make stuff in America. Well, you're not making it in America. What you make in America is, if you have the minerals that you mine here in the United States and make it into things that we can use in America, but also you have your energy independence because we produce it right here. We're basically trading the trade is with China, and China is winning on Joe Biden's watch.
When was the last time we saw a new mine sited in for rare earth minerals in the United States, or even just, metals that need smelting? When was the last time that actually happened? Tom, I know it hasn't happened in Wisconsin. I can't even remember. We didn't even get something as simple as an iron mine, which wasn't even worrisome environmentally. But when was the last time we sought to try to break the dependence that we have on China, on Russia, on Ukraine, by the way? So now think about some of the other gases. Neon is a gas that we rely heavily on Ukraine and other areas right next door to Russia, not to mention Belarus, which is helping Russia. When was the last time anybody talked about trying to find supply or tapping into existing supply here?
Yeah, so the Biden administration just shut down the Twin Metals project up in northern Minnesota. I believe that it was I believe it's a copper nickel project, one of the biggest finds in North America. The Biden administration just shut it down, and now they're saying, hey, we got to go to these electric vehicles. How do you do that when you're not mining the minerals here in America?
You get it from China or Russia.
You get it from China. And that is what's weakening America. And the despots around the world, they understand this. And I got to tell you, in terms of foreign policy, one place that we should strengthen immediately is we should send additional armaments to Taiwan. President Trump started doing it during his administration. That should go on overdrive at this point, because if you don't think President Xi is licking his chops, watching what's going on in the Ukraine in regards to Taiwan, they want Taiwan back. And under President Joe Biden, what better time to do it with a weak America?
A lot of people who are watching this are saying we expect China to move on Taiwan maybe by the end of next year, and possibly sooner than that. But the timeline looks pretty agreeable, because Joe Biden will be president and nothing will happen. We aren't going to sanction. I mean, modest trade restrictions that the Trump administration had put on China. I mean, we're talking modest, and they actually started to behave a bit better. He was also going to make sure that 5G, international 5G, was going to be controlled here in the United States. And the Biden administration is dropped the ball on that as well. One last thing, and that is something that isn't about these sort of big geopolitical things that we were talking about, Tom, and that is using this 9-year-old little boy with type 1 diabetes to claim that we have to do something about insulin prices. I want everybody to know that it was on the first or second day Joe Biden was president, he canceled an executive order from Donald Trump that had forced the lowering of prices on insulin and EpiPens. And Joe Biden canceled that. And so now he's got some 9-year-old boy with type 1 diabetes so he can use him as a kitty human shield to claim the drug companies are responsible.
This is why talk radio and conservative media is so important, because otherwise that lie would continue to be able to be spread unchecked. There are so many misstatements that are made in venues like this by people like Joe Biden. I mean, he has a long history of it, right, Vicki? And it is so good that you guys are fact-checking him on that, because that's exactly right. Joe Biden reversed what President Trump did to control pharmaceutical prices. And as you said, he was bashing big business last night when it was convenient. But then, of course, when it came to Pfizer, it was a love fest.
Exactly. This State of the Union brought to you by Pfizer. Tom, Tiffany, thanks so much for being on the program today.
Always good to be with you, Vicki.